Welcome to another edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We begin with Rich Dunk, author of A Practical Analysis of Sea Breeze Effects on Coastal Areas. The subtitle, With Implications Associated with Renewable Energy Applications and Environmental Assessments. Welcome to the program, Rich. I have to tell you, the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the title of your book is the controversy underway right now in New Jersey over windmills off the coast.
Well, I'll tell you like it is, okay? I mean, I think there's a lot of controversy on it. However, I think it'll happen, all right? I think the state government, Murphy and the whole crew, they're for it. The BPU's for it. They gave them all their permits. I think it's just a matter of getting the supply chain together. But you're going to see windmills off of New Jersey, and you're going to see them off of New York.
Why are people so vehemently opposed?
Because they don't know any better. Now, I'm not saying that mean or whatever, but hey, listen, like with anything, with any like power plant or, I mean, you're going to have some negative things, okay? But what people are forgetting, these offshore wind systems are very efficient or working very well in a lot of other countries like Norway, Germany, France, Italy, Denmark. I mean, you name it. I mean, they got a lot of offshore wind and they've been operating very successfully for years. And there's been no really issues with them. We got that wind farm operating off of Block Island. There's been no issues with that. I'm just saying it's a lot of what I think a lot of hype and a lot of sensationalism. Hey, my personal opinion, I think there should be a combination of like renewable energy, whether it be offshore wind, inland wind, solar, and fossil fuel, nuclear, in order to meet our energy supply.
Right.
All right. I don't think you can delete any of them with the amount of population we have and the energy requirements that we have. So I'm just saying, I just think it should be somehow, somewhere along the line, people got to compromise and bring this all together. Because I talked to a lot of people at the PJM, the interconnect, the grid, and they're saying, we just don't have enough resources to meet the demand. We got to get like renewable energy along with the fossil and all like that. So I think it has to be a combination of everything. And hopefully people will become educated and accept this. Because if not, you're not going to turn your lights on.
Well, I was going to say, when you can't turn your air conditioning on a 105-degree day, you're going to say, I wish I had that windmill. But the argument is that they're, killing fish, that dolphins are confused by the sonar.
No, I mean, I don't agree with that, okay? Because why didn't that happen overseas and all the wind farms over there? I mean, hey, listen to me. I mean, there may be some environmental negative things about it, but I mean, it's only temporary or whatever. But I mean, I think we're getting to the point now where we're looking at survival. I mean, as far as like energy issues and all. And I think it'd be a good combination with energy and the environment. And I think if people use a little common sense, a little knowledge, we can work it out.
Okay, you are Rich Dunk, PhD, CCM. You wrote A Practical Analysis of Sea Breeze Effects on Coastal Areas with Implications Associated with Renewable Energy Applications and Environmental Assessments. That's your subtitle. Right. So you got your PhD in what, Rich?
Okay, I got my PhD. It was a combination degree, actually. I got it it's a combination degree of atmospheric science and environmental science.
And CCM?
You know what that stands for?
No.
All right, sorry. CCM is Certified Consulting Meteorologist. Okay. And I had to do, I had to do papers on that. I had to do presentations. And then you had to go in front of a board. And I finally got certified and I got certified in actually long ago, 1979,
Wow.
and I've been certified ever since.
So, a practical analysis of sea breeze effects on coastal areas. Why now?
I've been so busy, to be honest with you, with my career from academia. I mean, hey, I was in the military, energy, the environmental field. I've been working in those fields my whole life. And then when I became in academia, I became like an adjunct professor, research scientist at Rutgers. And, we had all this data I had through all the years and everything. And, people saying to me, Rich, why don't you accommodate this and put it into like a little book? I said, I don't know if I really was, but I did. So anyway, I got all the information I had, all the data I had, and I put it in. I tried to consolidate it the best I could into this book.
You say that this book is not a bunch of physics equations, mathematical
No,
analysis. It's for the common man, this book, yes?
yeah. Let me tell you something. All right. Here's the other thing. The thing that I always got frustrated at through my educational experience, my career, and everything like that. You turn to a book, textbook, or whatever. All right, you look up sea breeze or coastal environment. I mean, the book's loaded with equations and everything like that. I mean, most people they don't care about that. I mean, they want to know how is the sea breeze going to impact my life or my project. So that's what the intent of the book was, trying to explain to them what causes the sea breeze and how they can apply it to their practical endeavors, efforts, projects, or whatever to make it cost effective. You don't need equations to do that. I mean, if you're a researcher and you want to take this to a further point, yeah. I mean, you got to understand the equations, you got to understand the math and the physics and everything behind it. But what I wanted to do was present to like practitioners, from students all the way up to CEOs or whoever who needs information on the sea breeze, but they don't have to read through a whole thing of equations and a whole bunch of explanations, but they have this information that they can apply to their project.
Okay, so give me a for instance. What kind of a project?
My whole career, my education really has been involved around like coastal areas and the sea breeze. I mean, that's what I did my PhD on, was how the sea breeze affects an industrial site. All right, that's located in the coastal area. So, in the beginning of the book, I described the sea breeze, what causes it. I get into like the climatology or whatever. Then I talk about the environmental and energy aspect of it. If you have a power plant, or I did a lot of work with the fire weather service. Okay,
Okay.
so what would happen like if you got like along the coast, you got like the pine woods and everything like that, and you get a forest fire? They were always interested, like, well, how come like the fire would break out upwind rather than downwind? Well, it's because of sea breeze. It would carry the tinder and bring it back, and it would set the fire off up. So a practical application for them, if you have a sea breeze, you got to look upwind as well as downwind to control that fire. And they didn't really know that until we got in and we studied that. All right, here's another thing. I worked with a medical doctor at University of Medicine Dentistry on allergy. And what we found was that the sea breeze, like people along the coast, when you had a strong sea breeze, there were a lot more cases in the emergency room with allergies, because the sea breeze would carry the pollen from the trees, recirculate it back in, and come right along the coast, and people would get affected with their allergies.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's like a health application. All right.
All right.
So
So you cover the whole gamut. I don't mind getting emails saying, they're going to put windmills 35 miles off the coast or 2 miles off the coast or
right.
whatever. But both sides should be presented. And I feel like it's very one-sided. So it's a good time for a book like this.
Yeah. All right. Here's the thing. I'm a proponent all right, for offshore wind with the wind turbines, if it's done correctly, and if it's done in combination with other forms of energy. You can't, I'm telling you right now, because I worked in the energy industry, the utilities for years, all right, and I've done a lot of work and a lot of study regarding this, and you just can't have one form of energy to satisfy the electrical demand. But a
Okay.
lot of people are saying, oh, we got to have clean energy by 2035 or whatever. Well, okay, that's very in the real, in the idealistic world that may be good, but in the real world, it's not true. All right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, all right, people along the coast are saying, well, we don't want offshore wind turbines because they're going to affect the whales, they're going to affect the birds, and we don't like the visibility, how it looks. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think the thing is, okay, they have some points where they're valid. I'm not so sure, but what I'm saying is the bottom line is if you don't do something like this, eventually you're not going to have the lifestyle you have now with like you're not going to run your refrigerator, your air conditioner, or whatever. So you got to think about the practical aspect of this, not only like the idealistic. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The one thing I am doing, I have to say this. Okay, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's the Tuckerton Seaport.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I talked to the director there. Her name's Brooke.
Yes.
And she wants me to bring the book there and she's going to promote it and they'll sell it in their gift shop and I'll go there and give some seminars on the sea breeze and like that. And I said, you know what? I would enjoy doing that. I don't need to get paid or nothing. I just come out and have fun, you know. So she says, well, your book is very interesting to us. We want to promote it because we like to promote not only what's going on like far as along the coast, but you know, local authors like yourself or whatever. And she said, if you're willing to give some presentations, she said we'd appreciate it much.
Great, Rich.
So I got a meeting set up with them, and then out here at Ocean County Library, they want a copy of the book too. So
All right,
all
Rich.
right.
Thank you so much. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's cool. And I'm working on another book, and people asked me to do this too, and they said, you know what we're interested in is how does the sea breeze affect like recreational activities like soaring or hot air ballooning or surfing, kite flying or whatever. So yeah, okay,
Ah,
that's cool.
sounds good.
So I'm working on that. But yeah, I mean, I've been involved in all those activities because I lived along the coast my whole life. I live here right now. I'm right on the water. Got my boat right in back of the house. I mean, can't get any better.
It
So,
can't get any better. Thank you,
right.
Rich.
All right.
Imagine having to train service dogs how to meet the needs of people with all kinds of disabilities. Timothy Martyn joins us to talk about it in his book that he wrote with his Aunt Barbara Miller entitled Service Dog Skills Faster. Now, clearly, you feel people in your industry need this book.
Yes, because there's a 10-year waiting list for some of the programs. Some of them can't do skills like emergency button pushes. Or we actually can combine some skills for diabetic people, where you take getting a juice box out of a fridge and getting it to the diabetic person before they have a diabetic attack.
You can get a dog to take something out of the refrigerator?
Yeah, so the big thing is conditioning is mostly behavioral psychology. And the thing is, conditioning for some skills with clicker, things like that can take 6 months for the advanced training or more, or a year sometimes. And usually the dog is placed at 2.5 years or older. Sometimes we've had puppies place them fully with their person at 3 months.
Are they ready at 3 months?
Oh yeah, we have videos, we're on our Facebook and everything, of a little 3-year-old miniature Aussie puppy getting a guy in a wheelchair stuff out of a cupboard, delivering it directly to his hand. So what's interesting is even with older dogs, it's the skills. What took the puppy a little bit longer was the fact that it was a puppy and had to do good in public. Sometimes the skills for some of these things, if it's ideas, is as fast as they can do the puzzle. So it's done in like literally 10 minutes for a smart dog and like a dumb dog, possibly 3 sessions of an hour.
Does the breed determine how intelligent a dog is?
Yes. Some of the dogs are a lot smarter, and sometimes it's the lions. So sometimes certain lions are smarter than others, even within the same breed. My aunt started on every breed. So she placed Dobermans, Rottweilers. She did a hound just for fun, so you could get around to hyper-focus on treats and smells. She got the hound done from the cupboard to the door in 20 minutes.
My goodness. And you say that there's a 10-year waiting list?
Some programs, there's a year, 10 years for some. There's a really big waiting list, and sometimes the skills are really hard to do, so there's a very large washout rate. If you take a dog that's already public access and attach a few skills, there's a much, much lower washout rate. If you do the screening properly, it's almost a zero washout rate. She had a zero washout rate for her program.
You're saying service dog skills faster. How are you able to communicate that in a book?
So this is specifically for service dog skills for people in wheelchairs. The other books we're working on are for every other category, diabetic, hearing dog. We have a lot more coming out, but they're going to be curriculum for students as well. So that'll be good. But we have about 12 books almost published now.
Okay, so tell me about service dog skills faster.
So what happens in service dog skills faster is it's all the skills for a person in a wheelchair. Light on, open a door, retrieve something. It's all the skills that take a long time for advanced training, which takes off a very large time on the training time. Now, some things and skills are easier to do this way, like emergency button push is done easier, things that are quite useful for the disabled person as well.
How are you able to do it faster?
We use cognitive stuff and ideas. There's 7 steps. You're guiding them through a puzzle. They might take 20 minutes on one step to figure it out. You just have to let them figure it out. You're only guiding them through the puzzle like puppies do and wolves teach each other. So you're only doing it, they figure it out as fast as they can figure out the puzzle. So if they figure out the puzzle in 10 minutes, you just bypassed a large amount of time for advanced training.
What's this puzzle like?
So step 2 on the cupboard or opening a door is you use your teeth. Step 7 is I opened it. Other steps are like it's inside. So there's an idea with mostly 8 steps altogether for all of them. I have no idea why. That seems to be the amount of ideas the dog needs for those kind of tasks.
Okay.
Yeah, so step 2 is you use your teeth. Step 7 is I can open a cupboard and they open and shut it, demanding you give them lots of treats.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it the treats?
Yeah. So what's interesting is this is the hardest thing for a person to learn. You have to do the whole system. You have to use the principles, which I came up with, to make it teachable. You have to go forward and back, but it's the easiest for the dog. So when you get the hang of this kind of training, you can produce a lot of them quickly if you can catch on to it. But this book was mainly meant for trainers that already had a background in everything. Okay. And some people who could catch on to train their own service dogs. It's the hardest for a person, but it's the easiest for a dog.
And how many books? You have 10 books?
Well, we did 12 for curriculum. She also did stuff where she won, my cousin won internationals with his dog Gus and herding. She's done competitions for methods for things like agility and stuff. We're keeping the competition stuff to ourselves because it doesn't really help anyone.
Okay.
Everything that has to do with service dogs.
You're publishing.
Yeah. Instead of having like EDI has a notebook or a thing you download for the test. Instead of that, we're having all the things you download for the test and certified be the books. So each one of the 12 books is a step or a thing you'd learn to do service dog training. Okay. And sometimes things like service dogs for wheelchairs, you only have to learn one if you want to specialize in hearing or mobility. So they're kind of separate curriculum.
Okay.
Some of them are leading up new trainers to be able to do this. But an actual trainer will know a lot of the components of this and be able to catch on much quicker.
Do people come to you to train?
Yes. So my aunt had a program 23 years ago before she got cancer. She had cancer off and on for 23 years. Now she's clear, and we're starting up the program again. Before, she had 30 dogs here in her facility. There's 5 buildings here she built specifically for service dogs.
Okay.
Over the years, she designed the whole thing, and her husband had a construction company, so he built it.
Okay.
It's all set up for that. This has been her project forever, and she didn't get to continue it because she had cancer. Now she's completely clear. So she had me move back here and help her finish her projects.
What I'm asking is, people come to you now, do you just say, here's a book?
No, people come to us. We help them with skills. Some people can't do it. Some people can. So we're hoping the whole field can produce it faster. But there's always going to be clients that can't do it themselves, especially if they're pretty much paralyzed, that can't train their own dog.
Okay.
We've placed dogs for people. The one with the video, with the puppy at 3 months old, was placed with a guy that's entirely paraplegic. He can barely, mostly paralyzed in his arms and legs.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of times it's going to need people doing it, trainers, but still going to have to teach people as well. It's going to take a while for it to be taught because it's hard to learn. But we're hoping to get rid of the wait time and do skills that more benefit the disabled people. So my aunt specifically did skills this way, so people in wheelchairs could more easily have dogs that actually help them better.
You have a very specific audience here.
Yes. Specifically people who have mobility problems, not just people in wheelchairs, but people who have trouble bending over and picking things up.
Right.
People that need a cane retrieved to their hand.
Right.
People that can't possibly move their arms or even give the command to give it to them, their hand. So you use a laser pointer to target the thing they want to do instead of having it all by name.
That's amazing. Timothy, thank you.
Sure.
And best of luck to Barbara.
Yes. She had ovarian, liver. She had more than one kind.
And she's okay.
Now she's completely clear.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
She must have work to do here.
Yeah, apparently. God's not letting her die till her projects are finished.
That's right. Thank you. Athena Contarino started writing poetry when she was 12 and went on to win a Young Writers Contest. Then, as we all know, life tends to get in the way. And for Athena, a series of traumatic events followed that ultimately inspired her to write My Shattered Soul.
With certain traumatic events in my family and also beforehand, I was in therapy and my entire book was written. 99% of it was when I was in therapy.
Was that a long time ago?
It was 3 years ago. My dad died when I was 22. I had gone out with friends and I came home. It was April of that year, and my dad's 50th birthday was in August. We celebrated, and I went to wake him up to let him know I was home safe. And I found him. He was dead, fentanyl overdose.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I didn't even know he did drugs. I was 22 when that happened. And then I met my husband 3 months after my dad died. And before I knew it, I was married. And then we were having children. And in 2016, the first love of my life dies. He commits suicide. That's not the thing that put me in therapy, though.
What happened?
When my oldest daughter was 12, we had her in therapy. She had to stay in a mental hospital because they thought she was suicidal. When she was 12, she finally was able to tell us, my mother remarried after my dad died.
Okay.
That man sexually assaulted her when she was 8 years old.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So at that point, I felt like I was drowning.
I can understand that.
And then everything came flooding back.
It was a trigger for all the other trauma.
Yes.
That you had never really dealt with.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I felt like I had fallen down a rabbit hole and I was drowning.
Yeah. I applaud you for seeking out therapy because so often
Thank you.
people don't or can't.
Yeah.
So were you encouraged by your therapist to write?
Well, he said, do you have any hobbies that could help you understand these feelings, get through these feelings? And I said, well, I used to write poetry. And he goes, well, why don't you explore that? Why don't you start writing more? And everyone that I wrote, I would bring to therapy. He would ask me who it was about and so on and so forth. And then before I knew it, I had 50 of them.
Wow.
And then COVID happened. And then it took 1.5 years of therapy for me to say it wasn't my fault what happened to my daughter.
Yeah.
And 1.5 years of that. And he got inundated with people dealing with death from COVID.
Right.
I couldn't get appointments anymore.
Oh.
and I had barely touched on my dad's death at therapy, and I still have issues with that.
Well, I mean, Athena, you're
Yeah.
not, most people don't go through this amount of stuff.
Yeah,
Thank God you have your poetry.
yeah.
Is there a poem that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. This one bothers me the most because I was in my greatest depression when I wrote it. It's not long. It doesn't have to be. That's what my therapist told me. It just has to come across as wow.
Yeah.
Okay, it's titled Drifting. Drifting through a black sea, there is nothing left for me. Darkness surrounds me. Your dead soul built this heartache. You built these walls. So now the darkness falls. Falling from your grace, so far down do I fall. Drifting through a black sea, will you find me?
Mm. You okay?
Yeah,
All right.
it's just, you know, looking back into what I've written, it stirs the feelings.
Sure. That's the whole point, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is my heart, my mind, and my soul. This is everything that I've dealt with. I had to get it out, and it was my coworker that actually encouraged me. She was like, "You see, if you don't put it out, I'll put it out for you."
Mm. I mean, hopefully you'll be able to help others or encourage others.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it was the literary agent at the very beginning. She said, not only will you be good for like millions of people that just can't say it,
Right.
but for literary study of mental health.
True.
Yeah, and I'm currently writing for my next one. That's going to be My Shattered Heart. And then the next one following will be My Shattered Life.
Is your daughter okay?
Yeah, she's good now. But like once we knew, we realized like okay, it all makes sense now.
Right. Can you read these poems anywhere? Do you have a place where people read poetry? Poetry slams?
Yeah, I know there's poetry slams down in Boston. In New Hampshire, I think there's one place. It's at a pub up in Portsmouth.
Would you consider doing that?
Yeah, definitely.
I think you should.
Okay.
Athena, thank you so much for sharing with
You're
me.
very, very welcome.
You hang in there.
Thanks.
All right. Vladimir Prempin moved with his family from Germany to the U.S. a few years ago, and there were definitely some disturbing experiences that Vladimir shares in his book, The Faces of Racism: True Stories and Direct Experiences with Racism.
So this topic, racism, is moved me since I was a child. Can I say? I remember I was maybe 13 years old, and my parents and I we left Haiti because I'm come from Haiti,
Okay.
and we moved to Dominican Republic, and I went there too to school, and that was the first time I was recognized this problem racism. And at that time I start to thinking about it and find solutions for the problems that I saw there. And yeah, like I say, I was 13 years old, and at that time I wasn't prepared to start a such of a project. But I think the idea to write a book was coming at that time. And last year when I came here, and the time that I live or that I spent in Germany too, I I was confronted from this virus so every day, daily. So that pushed me also to thinking about to why not to write a book about it to let other people know what the problems. this virus can bring in our lives.
It's interesting you call racism a virus.
Yeah, I think.
Do you discuss specific instances?
For example, I wrote it in the book too. For example, the time in Dominican Republic, because I'm a Haitian, and the Dominican people, they don't really like Asians. So at that time in school too, people start to laughing on me and do things that they should not do. And when we moved to Germany, it became worse because the people, they are not open to for people like me. Like, if I could, not everybody, but many of them.
Yeah.
And also, when I went there to school too, it was the same problem. So I didn't feel at the time. I didn't feel really at home. Also in Germany, and this virus uh, was touching me, like I said, daily. So at school, at work, at the street, and everywhere.
Were you hurt?
I think the last reason why I moved here with my family is something happened that's make me really thinking about. So because I think I have two children, and one of them was playing in a park, and there were other children there, and one of the children, they like to play together, and my son go there and start to play with the other children, and one of the parents they saw my child, and I think it was the mother. She stand up and went to the children and took her child out of the group. So to not be in touching with my child. So that was one of things that made me really thinking to also to left there Germany. And there are also another things. So for example, when you go in the street, when you that people looking at you differently, sometimes they want to fight with you too.
Yeah.
All those
Yeah.
things, all those things was happening. Also, I think not. I think I also before I come here too, it was mm, maybe 5 months or 6 months before. Some people try to make something in my car. So in the wheels, they just turn the how you call that?
The steering wheel?
Yeah, the steering wheel. Yeah, but they do that twice. I I was asking people and the neighborhood. They said they didn't see nothing. So there were many things who were happened to me there.
It had to be upsetting during the presidential campaign when that narrative was being advanced that Haitians were eating animals.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that had to be very disturbing, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But do you have any suggestions in your book as to how we can eradicate this virus, as you call it?
Yeah, so I think the one of the big problems that we have, and also I saw that too in Germany, people, many people are too passive. I think
Mm,
also sometimes those things that I told you, when I talk with some of friends who don't have the same background than I, they see that differently. Sometimes they're laughing. They say, "Ah, you see things differently." I think this kind of behavior should be changing so
yeah,
that people should be more active because when I say hey, somebody hurt me because of my I'm black, for example, I think people should take that seriously because I don't think that when I say that I just want to make people looking at me or something like that.
right.
And I think that's the main problem that we maybe have in the world, that this serious topic, people do not give that, how I can say that, priority. And many people maybe think, or they think this problem is not their problem, but it's a problem for everybody.
It is. For
It
sure.
touched me. It can this problem can touch me today, or racism can touch me today, but it can touch another person who maybe never would never think about that. So
Yeah.
that's why, for example, I do some flyer. I I try to share them with other people, and sometimes uh, there are people they say racism is that exist. I say, what?
I
So
know.
just to say, people take this problem because they maybe live in a society where they are a little bit uh, comfortable, but if they go somewhere else, maybe let's say in another country, something like that, it could be different.
Right.
And they many people they don't think about that. That's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate it, Vladimir.
Thank you too. I'm really appreciate it too.
Fan fiction is what got Lou G. Palmerio hooked on writing years ago. And now she's made a story her own entitled Mystic Bonds. So, what kind of fan fiction are we talking about?
Early days was Doctor Who and Harry Potter,
Oh.
and now I'm more into Hannibal right now, the TV show.
Oh, okay. Fan fiction means you basically write the ending you want.
Exactly. Yeah. Use the characters that are developed and then build a new story for them. Yeah.
That must be so much fun.
It is. Yeah. Play around with some characters you love.
So then one day you woke up and decided, I think I'll write a book called Mystic Bonds. Like, how did that happen?
So it started with a fan fiction story I had written years ago and got, a lot of likes, got a lot of fan favorite moments. And I was like, I would love to turn this into something original. I would love to create my own characters from this because I liked the plot. I liked what happened to them. But I needed to make it my own. So it was a personal challenge that that I made to myself to create this.
So what's going on here?
Young woman just coming out of a breakup. It was, emotional for her, but she's, ready to move on. And she happens to have magic. She's a mage. She's, a full-time waitress, part-time craft person, and she meets a guy, and things spark immediately. They are drawn to each other, and he is immortal, so they both are part of a supernatural community. And then they discover that there is a, millennia old prediction that these two will come together. And so they have to figure out if it's really them or if it's just wishful thinking. And then the ex, Hannah's the main character, her ex comes in and tries to mess things up for them. So our main character, Hannah, she's moving on. She finds this guy, but her ex is hung up about it, her ex, Stacy. And so she causes mayhem and chaos. So,
what kind of mayhem and chaos are we talking about?
So Hannah's a mage. Her ex Stacy is a regular human. She has no supernatural powers. Yeah, but she's a little psychotic.
Like, what does she do?
Well, first she tries to buy part of her crafts. She goes to her Etsy store, buys something to try and make up with her and to try to reconnect with her, and she won't, and Hannah won't have it. She's moved on, and then Stacy, getting more and more desperate, ends up kidnapping Hannah. So
Oh, geez.
yeah,
Can't Hannah work her way out of that?
she works her way out of it, but at the same time as her new boyfriend Aaron comes to rescue her. So
Do we have a couple of books involved here?
there may be a subsequent one, that I've started on.
So what is it? What do you want readers to walk away with?
It's great question. It's a fun play on the soulmate idea set in, Philadelphia with two very different supernatural beings. So there's fantasy, there's, life in the city. It's, just lighthearted. Nothing is too serious with this, right?
I like the soulmate thing because, are they left going, do we just want to rip each other's clothes off, or are we meant to be together? Like, which is it?
And that's exactly what they what they struggle with. Yeah, there's a moment where they're like, I definitely want to take this further, but I don't know if this is us actually feeling this, or if this is, some supernatural destiny that's forcing our hand.
So you've been writing fan fiction for many years,
yeah,
kind of making things up the way you see fit.
Yeah.
So when you're like doing dialogue and you're putting this all together, does it just come to you? Is that difficult for you?
It's usually a dialogue. It's usually an exchange that starts any scene for me. It's, what are these characters? How are they communicating? How poorly are they communicating? Right. Sometimes it's what they're not saying that ends up making it.
Right.
And so that's usually where I start. And then it's about, the emotions that end up going behind it end up driving, the rest of the scene.
Any thoughts for people that, are trying to get on that writing train?
I'll say what, most writers say is just to keep writing, right? Like, I'm still like, yes, the book's published, but I'm still writing fan fiction, right? Like, it's just it's an outlet. And when the more you write, the better you'll become at it. And eventually you'll find something that, a story that sticks with you, like this has over the years, that, is begging you to be more, is begging you to be something bigger than what it started as.
So this, for some reason, is what made you publish this story in particular, this moment.
Yeah, like I said, I had created, I had started the first draft of the story was with somebody else's characters and is, slightly different. And I was like, I want to take this further. I love the idea of that's happening to them, that something beyond these characters is driving them together, and they're nervous about it and they don't want to accept it, at first glance. So they have to build something beyond that. And so they make sure that, their affection for one another is real. And at the same time, somebody's ex steps in and tries to ruin the whole thing for them. And they fight that, right? They have these external forces that they're trying to fight against while still trying to make things work between them.
Now, are you talking about this? Going to the library?
My sister is my biggest PR, my hype woman. Every Uber she gets in, she recommends my book to people. So, especially because she's in Philadelphia, right? So it's very easy for her to be like, oh, my sister wrote a book that happens in Philadelphia, and this, like, so she's been recommending it left and right. I'm like, you're awesome.
Yeah, well, I love that it's based in Philadelphia. Right. Where are we in Philadelphia?
So he's on Society Hill. She is basically right by the Independence Hall there. She's Independence Hall area.
So she's like right in the middle of things.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then he's got old money, so he could afford something on Society Hill before it, became a couple $1 million.
See, I think that'll work for you. You're a local author,
right. Yeah. So the characters in the fan fiction first draft are in London. And when I first started converting it to an original story, I was going to keep it in London. And I was like, I have never been to London. So that felt weird to me. It didn't feel authentic. So for me, my parents grew up, my mom's from Overbrook, my dad's from Fairmount. Like, they're from these sections of Philadelphia that I was like, I grew up spending weekends in Philadelphia. And so to me, that it's what made sense. It was, I speak Eagles, right? Like,
you speak Eagles. You speak Philadelphia.
I speak Philadelphia, right? Like, I went on a hike. I'm in Maryland, right? And I'm on a hike, and I was wearing a Eagles, no one likes us, we don't care hoodie. And a guy passing me on the trail had his Eagles hat on, and he's like, "Go Birds!" And I'm like, "Go Birds!" And everybody else around us is like, "We're trying to hike, people. Why are you yelling at each other?" And I was like, "You just don't understand."
Wait till you meet a Flyers fan.
Exactly.
Hello?
Exactly.
Aren't there a million fan fiction sites out there?
There's a a host of them, yeah.
And people share.
I will be. Yeah, especially for ones that like people who loved that story to let them know, like, if you liked this story, there is a, original character version of this now that's available. So that's definitely something I can leverage.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you, so this was originally based on a fan fiction. What fan fiction were you watching when this was inspired you?
It was a crossover between the show Lucifer and then Harry Potter. So it was Lucifer and Hermione were the main two characters.
Okay. I love Hermione. Love her.
She's wonderful, right? Like, she puts up with those guys and she saves the day, and she's just, I think sometimes she gets underappreciated because people are like, oh, she's the only girl. And I'm like, well, first of all, she's not the only girl, but second of all, she's badass. So
that's right. We need more women like her.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Something happened to Samantha Maise in 2017. She started writing, and then she hit on a story that convinced her it was time to publish, beginning with Deadly Love.
My first published work was an historical fiction novel called Saved by Titanic, and that kind of set in motion why I write. So that one I wrote just because I've been learning so much about Titanic, and I wanted to get my thoughts out about it. But for my mystery series, it's just something that comes to mind. And
a whole series. How many books?
Right now I have it planned for 8 books. This is the first book.
That's ambitious, Samantha.
It is. And I was like, growing up, I was like, I could never write a series. And then my brain was like, bet? It's crazy. So I got the inspiration just after reading a writing prompt, which asked for write a mysterious professor. And that's what came out of my head, this book.
Where was this writing prompt?
Someplace on Facebook.
And then once you started writing, the floodgates opened.
They did. I was typing up the latest book in my story, and I actually came up with inspiration for one of the future books I'm going to write, just like through a conversation 2 different characters have. And I was like, yes, this is great. Yes.
Where do we start with this series?
All right. So Deadly Love is a split mystery book about a college professor who falls in love with a student. And it's also about a girl looking for her sister and how these 2 stories are both connected. The story starts with Richard Dangerfield. He is the college professor, and every summer school he has a kind of a game that he plays where he tries to find a student and not fall in love, but have more of like a summer fling until he meets Ashley Brighton, who then he falls in love with. And then the other, I would say, main character, the main female character, is named Bethany, who is looking for her sister. And she's really an anti-hero because she will stop at nothing, but it kind of like backfires and hurts her like in so many ways.
When did her sister go missing?
When her story starts 2 years ago. And when Richard falls in love with this Ashley, that was also 2 years ago.
Okay. Bethany goes to college just to find her sister. That's her motivation for going to college.
It is, yes. She goes to the same college and tries to find clues and realizes that, people, like, just because they're trying to be helpful could also be trying to hinder her investigation.
So Richard might have something to hide, the college professor.
Yes.
She's led into dangerous situations. What kind of situations?
Like I said, Richard, he preys on female students. He abuses his position of power, and Bethany is caught up with that because she went into school thinking that perhaps he had something to do with it. But then in a strange twist of fate, She starts to fall in love with him as well, but then realizes that this is probably not the best thing and calls it off. But then, he still tries to go after her.
This guy sounds like such a creepy guy.
He is. He is.
Now, this is just the first book, so do we spend 8 books looking for the sister?
I don't want to tell any spoilers, but no.
Okay.
We find out her fate by the end of the book.
So is there a cliffhanger?
So this one did not have a cliffhanger. What's interesting is that I actually wrote another book back in like 2018 or so that actually acts as the second book because I found a way to connect them.
Okay.
But I still didn't want to like open end this book. So the second book actually has a different cast of characters and conflicts that we go through. That one will be an open-ended cliffhanger.
So Richard gets whatever's coming to him and you wrap everything up pretty much on this book.
Yes, I will say though, Richard Dangerfield, men like him, they never go down easy. So we may see him in a future book.
Dangerfield.
Yes. When coming up with his name, I was like, how can I have it be where when someone opens the book, I want them to see his name, which like literally shortened is Dick Danger, and be like, oh yeah, he's totally the bad guy.
Dick Danger. I love it. How do you come up with dialogue? Do you just sit at the computer and wait for it to come?
Yeah, so actually I like to always start with good old pen and paper, and I really just have to come up with inspiration, and it's amazing to find how inspiration can happen. It can just be like through like a song lyric or like a feeling that I have.
Any thoughts for people out there who want to write, but they listen to this podcast because they're looking for, how do I get started? Where do I start? How do I promote it? Any thoughts to share on that?
Yeah, I do. I would say trust your own instincts with writing. I feel like on social media, like Threads, where there's this like anti, don't do that trope, don't do this trope. And well, the first person who's ever going to read or love your book is you. So if you don't love it, how do you expect the readers to love it as well? You want your book accessible to like others, but if you don't love what you're writing, I don't really see where you can connect with readers.
Right. I think sometimes too, it's just keeping your phone handy, and you get a thought, write it down.
Yes.
If you don't have your phone, grab a piece of paper and a pen. They do exist still.
They do
right?
exist.
They exist. In fact, you still use them.
I do.
Are you talking about your book?
I have done a book signing at one of my local bookstores. I've done that.
Well, that's a start. It was a pleasure talking to you.
You as well.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.